Hi everyone, and welcome back to Cardiac Ready for Teens. For those of you who don't know, I'm Bia, and Cardiac Ready for Teens is a place where teens can come together with other teens to learn about Spiritist teachings and topics in a way that makes more sense to us and is more relatable to us as teenagers in today's society. So we recently have started to read through the Gospel according to Spiritism together, and in that we've still been on the introduction, and as we continue to say, it's easy to think that, oh, it's just the introduction, let's just skip this part. But with books, especially the Spiritist Doctrines books, the introduction gives us background that we need to better understand what's going to be given to us, the teachings that are going to be given to us in the rest of the book. So it's important that we read it so we have this basic understanding before we try and jump into the harder stuff. Because if we jump in just to the hard stuff, it's going to make it even harder to understand those things, and then we're going to have to go back to the introduction and read it anyways. So last week we left off talking about how Spiritism does not originate from just one person that their own personal beliefs, they had this idea. No, the spirits are spreading this doctrine all over the world, so to a huge number of people that aren't related at all, and then people kind of connect on those things and be like, oh yeah, I do believe in that, and that's how it's been all compiled. So we know that Spiritism isn't just the thoughts of one spirit or one personal person. It's widespread, and we get many different spirits giving this to many different mediums throughout the world. So that gives it more credibility. So to continue where it left off. However large, beautiful, or just an idea appears, it is impossible to unite opinions right from the first moment. The conflicts that arise in this case are the inevitable consequences that such a movement would cause. They are necessary so that the truth may be emphasized, and the sooner this happens, the better, so that the false ideas may be discarded. Any spiritist who feels worried about this situation may be tranquil, as all those isolated claims will fail before the enormous and discerning force of universal concordance. So here they're mentioning how, as we left off last week, talking how some people might come, they might have their own opinion or their own idea, and they try to present that. But we must know that there's always going to be people with different ideas. Even if their idea may seem like pretty okay, there's always going to be people with different ideas, and no one's going to unite at the first instinct, right? Because as we know, human beings, even if people agree on one general topic, then there's little things that people don't agree on within that big topic. So everyone's going to be completely on the same page all at one time. But we must know that with Spiritism, with this doctrine that is so strong at its basis, that's all we need. So we don't need to worry about all these people that are going to come and try and put their opinions and try and make something else out of it. Because those are false ideas and false opinions, then those will just be pushed to the side and they'll fall, and they're not going to prevail because we have this background and this basis of Spiritism that wouldn't let that wrong idea prevail or take over. So they're saying, so if you're a Spiritist who feels worried about other ideas that are out there or different interpretations of Spiritisms, don't worry, because eventually it will come to the conclusion that it is, right? Is that it will come back to its basis, and those outside opinions that are wrong will fall and fade away. Then it continues. It is not the opinion of any one person that will produce unity, but the unanimous voices of the spirits. It will not be any person, least of all myself, who will create the Spiritist orthodoxy. Neither will it be a spirit wishing to oppose in any way. This unity will be accomplished by the universal gathering of spirits, who communicate throughout the world by order of God. This is the essential character of the Spiritist doctrine. This is its force and its authority. God desires that his laws be set upon an immovable base, and so did not trust these fundamentals to only one fragile being. So right here, the important thing, they even have it italicized in the book, is it's not the opinion of any one person that will produce unity. So Spiritism is based off that, right? That it's not one person. And then they say, And it's least of all myself. So even the spirit who is telling us this right now, he's saying, not even myself am I going to tell you everything that Spiritism is. No. Spiritism is the unanimous voice of the spirits, right? So unanimous. Everyone's on the same page. And it won't be one spirit that's trying to say something, or even this spirit. So it's not one person or one spirit. It's the unanimous, the unity of all spirits agreeing on this. And they said it will be accomplished by order of God. So these spirits are uniting and coming to these conclusions and this unanimous agreement because of the order of God saying, okay, this needs to happen. And of course, when we are talking about the spirits that are doing this, we know that these are highly evolved spirits, because spirits, even just like us, are not that evolved to keep their opinion out of things. And so it said, this is the essential character of the Spiritist doctrine. This is its force and its authority. So right there we see that that's what's most important, that this is, again, like the Spiritist doctrine, the doctrine of the spirits, right? Telling us and showing us, and it's this unanimous agreement. So that's really what they're trying to stress here. And that what's behind those spirits driving this movement is God, right? And then they continue. Before such a powerful tribune, where conspiracies, rivalries, sects, or nations are unknown, all oppositions, ambitions, and those who seek individual primacy will fall. We ourselves will fall if we try to substitute our own ideas for those of God. He alone will decide all lawful questions, impose silence on disagreement, and give reasons to those who have it. Before this imposing accord, from the voices of heaven, what value has an opinion of a mere man or that of one spirit? It makes no more impression than a drop of water in the ocean, and even less than a child's voice in a tempest. So, here again, saying that it's such a powerful thing to have all these spirits unanimously agreeing on this doctrine and on this topic. And so again, they're saying that those who have a different opinion or who are inputting their own opinion, that they're going to fall. And they said, even us, we're talking a lot about other people, but we do the same thing. We try to put our opinion in things as right. We try and say, oh, this is my opinion, so it has to be right. But no, here they says, we're going to fall if we try to put our opinions above God's ideas, right? Of God's laws, God's rules. So if we say, oh no, this is right. No, what's right is God's laws, and we have to be following that to be doing what's right, right? God's not waiting for us to make these up, right? We have to follow the laws that He set out for us. And again, it's saying one opinion from one person or one spirit, what's that going to do? They said that's going to have no more of an effect than a drop of water in the ocean or a child's voice in a tempest. So kind of to show that one little opinion isn't going to change this doctrine that is based on the unanimous accordance of the spirits. And then they continue. Universal opinion, like that of a supreme judge, is the one which is pronounced last, being formed from all individual opinions. If one of these contains the truth, it merely shows its own relative weight in the balance. If it is false, it cannot prevail against the rest. In this immense concourse, all individuals disappear, and this constitutes yet another disappointment for man's pride. This harmonious assemblage is already being formed, and before the turn of the century we shall see its full brightness shining forth in such a manner as to dissipate all doubts. The field is prepared, and from now on, pointless voices will receive the mission of making themselves heard in order to congregate man under one banner. But until this actually happens, all those who fluctuate between two opposing point of views can observe in which way general opinions form. This will be the correct indication as to the declaration of the majority of spirits on the varying subjects upon which they communicate, and even more accurate sign as to which of these two systems will prevail. So here one of the big things I want to look at is how they said the field is prepared, and from now on, voices will receive mission of making themselves heard. So we know that as much as we're saying, oh, Spiritism is another one man, and it's not, it's the opinion of all. We know that we have leaders in the Spiritist movement, like Chico Xavier or Allan Kardec or Givaldo Franco, and we have big names that communicate lots of this stuff to us. And again, we're not saying that it's this one person's ideas or a few people's ideas, but they are kind of given this mission to come help spread Spiritism, come help spread the teachings so that everyone can start getting it and it can start growing, and eventually, like they said here, all men would be under one banner, so we'd all be agreeing on the same thing. So there are individuals who have a mission to help spread Spiritism and help get the word out and teach the right teachings, but again, none of it is their personal opinion. And now we're on to the third part of the introduction, and this part is titled Historic Facts. In order to understand the gospel better, it is necessary to know the true meaning of many of the words frequently used, which bear relation to the customs and the Jewish society of the time. Some of these words no longer have the same meaning and have frequently been misinterpreted, which in turn has led to uncertainty. When the full meanings are explained, it shows the real sense behind certain maxims, which at first sight appear rather strange. So this is, again, a big part of why the introduction is so important. So the gospel, we know, is these recollections of stories like in the time of Jesus. And we know that was a long time ago, and they had much different vocabulary than we do. So they're saying that some of the words don't have the same meanings. Maybe some of the words we don't know at all, but some of the words don't have the same meaning. So we need to know those meanings from that time so it makes sense. Because sometimes the meaning that we have now will make it unclear and we'll be uncertain of what they're trying to say. But knowing these meanings of how they meant at that time will help us understand. So the first word they bring up is Samaritans. After the division of the 10 tribes, Samaria became the capital of the distant kingdom of Israel. Destroyed and rebuilt at various times, under Roman rule, it became the administrative head of Samaria, one of the 4 divisions of Palestine. Herod the Great beautified Samaria with sumptuous monuments, and to gratify Augusto, gave it the name of Augusta, in Greek, Sebaste. The Samaritans were almost constantly at war with the kings of Judah. Profound aversion dating from the time of the separation perpetuated between the 2 tribes, causing them to avoid any kind of reciprocal relations. In order to widen the scheme and avoid going to Jerusalem for religious festivities, they built themselves a private temple and adopted some reforms. They only admitted the Pentateuch, which contained the laws of Moses, rejecting all other books to which these were annexed, and their sacred books were all written in ancient Hebrew characters. According to Orthodox Jews, there were heretics and consequently despised, excommunicated, and persecuted. The antagonism between the 2 nations was found exclusively upon their religious divergence, despite the fact that the origin of their belief was the same. They were the Protestants of their time. Some Samaritans are still to be found in certain regions of the Levant, especially near Nablus and Jaffa. They observe the laws of Moses more strictly than other Jews, and only marry among themselves. So that gives us way more historical background than I'm sure any of us knew about what the Samaritans really mean. But in simple terms, some ways that we can explain it is that they were the people there of that time, right? Like they said, in the capital of Israel, which then reformed many times. And we see here that they're comparing it to the Protestants of their time. And again, at the end, they give us some more context that some Samaritans are still found in that region, and they observe the laws of Moses more strict, and they only marry amongst themselves. So that gives us an interesting context of who the Samaritans actually were, rather than just like some word meaning a person that we throw around. So you notice the people of the time that were similar to the Protestants of their time, and they observed the laws of Moses more strictly. So that's just a quick summary, so we can kind of keep that in our head when we know. So now we have a little bit of background, and I encourage you all to look more into the history, and if you guys want to share anything with me that I could share with everyone too, that would be great if we get more history behind this as well. The next word they bring us is the Nazarites. The name given in old times to Jews who took the vow, either temporary or perpetual, to remain in perfect purity. They promised to observe chastity and abstain from alcohol drinks and not to cut their hair. Samuel and John the Baptist were Nazarites. Later on, the Jews gave themselves this name to the first Christians, alluding to Jesus from Nazareth. This was also the name given to heretic sects from the first phase of the Christian epoch, and who, like the Ebionites, from whom they adopted certain principles, mixed the practices of Mosaic laws with those of Christian dogmas. This sect disappeared during the 4th century AD. So here we get another group of people that were the Nazarites. And this, they said, they were old-time Jews of the time that took the vow to remain in perfect purity. So they observed chastity, they abstained from alcohol drinks, they didn't cut their hair. So this was a type of people in the Jewish community. Just like we see how the Samaritans were like the Protestants of that time, this is like a group of the Jewish community. And we see that there's big names that come up in the Bible that were these Nazarites. And later on, these Nazarites became the first ones that were Christian, per se, before they had that word. So they mixed the practice of Mosaic law and Christian dogmas. So they kind of mixed the two. And they were kind of that mix between the old Jewish and the new Christian dogmas. And this sect disappeared in the 4th century AD. So while the Samaritans, we saw that they're still around today in certain regions, the Nazarites are not. And then we have the publicans. In ancient Rome, this was the name given to those who rented out the collection of public taxes and all kinds of incomes, either in Rome itself or in other parts of the empire. They were like the general collectors and auctioneers of taxes in the ancient system in France, which still exists in some regions. In 1865. The risk they ran made most people close their eyes when it came to their frequently amounted riches, which for some were the fruits of levies and scandalous gains. Later on, the name publican was extended to all those who superintended public monies and underlying agents. Today, the term is employed in a disparaged way to denote financiers and agents with very few scruples. It is said, as greedy as a publican, or as rich as a publican, referring to their ill-gotten gains. During Roman rule, the question of taxes was what the Jewish found most difficult to accept, causing great irritation amongst them. Many revolts resulted from this problem, so turning it into a religious question, as it was considered to be against the law. Indeed, a powerful party was formed, at whose front was put a certain citizen named Judah the Gaulet, whose objective was to abolish all taxes. The Jewish despised the taxes, and all those entrusted with collecting them. Hence sprang up the aversion shown to publicans of all categories, amongst whom could could be found many people of esteem, but who, due to their functions, were despised together with whomever kept company with them. Prominent Jews consider it a compromise to have any personal relationship with these people. So here we see that the publicans, or the publicans, however you want to say it, they were, in the time in ancient Rome, they were the ones who collected the taxes or any type of income. But the thing was, it wasn't that they were just the collector slash charging you for all these things. They kind of were very scandalous. So they ended up keeping a lot of money, and they were rich, so people didn't like them. Because you could tell that they were getting money out of it. They were getting money out of the taxes that were given. So they were benefiting wrongly, right? The taxes weren't for those individual people. The taxes were for the towns, the cities. So, like they're saying here, so very few people liked these publicans because they were the ones that collected taxes and then used them wrongly. And so they're saying today there's sayings such as greedy as a publican or rich as a publican. So saying oh, they're rich because they got it from kind of some sketchy way or some not allowed way, or greedy because they wanted to keep it to themselves instead of giving it. And then the Jewish people during Roman rule, when the Romans came and just introduced, okay, we're going to start taxing you now, the Jewish had a big problem with this because that wasn't happening before, and now it was these absurd taxes that were getting taken, and the publicans were clearly benefiting from it. So there's a big problem with that. So when we think, and again, you can look more into the history of it and deeper meanings, but for key context, the publicans were these tax collectors that no one really liked because they were greedy and they weren't using the money correctly. And then there's another group of people that they bring, which is tax collectors. These were the lower class of collectors, entrusted principally with the collection of tolls on entering cities. Their function was more or less similar to those of custom officials and granting of passes. They shared the rejection suffered by publicans in general. This is the reason why, in the Bible, we frequently meet the word publicans alongside the expression of sinful people. This did not imply debauchery or vacancy, but was a term of scorn, a synonym for people who kept bad company, people unworthy to mix with decent people. So here we see that tax collectors were, again, alongside with the publicans. They were the ones, they were lower class, so they weren't getting these things for themselves because they were the lower class, but they were the ones that were collecting tolls when people entered cities and giving people passes to enter cities. So kind of like how we have Easy Pass today, it was these people who were collecting these tolls to go into other cities and giving passes to go into other cities. And even though they were of a lower class, they got associated with these publicans, and because of that, they were also kind of rejected. And people also didn't like them because they just started hating people that were collecting taxes because of the problems that they were having with these tax collections. So these tax collectors also got rejected even though they were of a lower class. And they said this is also why in the Bible there's frequently the words publicans, and that usually means sinful people. So that means people that are doing wrong things, because these people were collecting taxes, but not just collecting taxes, but using them wrong and using it greedily and being selfish about it. So that's why it's usually attached to sinful people, and it's looked down upon. So if someone says that, it's kind of like a bad person, but not like robbery, but kind of like those people that have power and are corrupt. So, and then the tax collectors also got rejected because of their association with the publicans. So that's what we'll leave off today, because the next definition is kind of long. But next week we'll continue on with these definitions, and we'll continue more into the interaction. But before we leave off, I'd like to read our message from the Daily Book of Positive Quotations by Linda Picone for today's date, April 2nd. This one's titled, Hope. Hope costs nothing. The last thing we should ever lose is hope, even in the face of the impossible. It costs us nothing to hope, and without hope, we are certain to fail. Without hope, we can't move. We sit and wait for what we believe is inevitable. We may never know for sure whether we could have changed things. All we know is that we didn't even try. I can hope for the best and let that hope tell me what I need to do to make it happen. If at all you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, feel free to email me at cardiacradio4teens@gmail.com and I'll get back to you right away. I'm Bia, and this has been Cardiac Radio for Teens. Thank you all for listening. This has been Cardiac Radio for Teens. Thank you all for listening.